Hello, math magicians. Today what we're going to look at is we're going to use the TI-84 to find the quadratic function that models data. So let's look at the steps we're going to do first. Number one, we're going to enter data. Number two, we're going to calculate the quadratic regression. And number three, we're going to check by graphing the data and the regression. So the first thing we need to do is to enter our data. So I'm going to take these points here, 2, -20, -2, -4, and 0, -8, and put those in. So here's what has to happen, though. I am going to put my information in my calculator, but I have to put all the x's into what's called list 1 and my y's into list 2. So let's refresh ourselves how to get to the list. So we're going to look at the stat button right here. We're going to press the stat button, and we're going to edit. So you can just press the number 1 and enter into our data table. So I'm going to enter that information. -2, don't forget the negative is that button there, 2, and a 0. All right, so in the range, we're going to put the y values, which will be -20, -4, and -8. -20, -4, and -8. And -8. All right, so I've got the data there. So let me just real quick show you what this looks like on our graph. So if I were to press graph here, then stuff's going to show up. Notice that I've got some something already in there. So let me go into my y equals, and I'm going to clear that information out. And I'm going to go into stat plot right here, and which is, again, second, and you go to the one above. See the stat plot there? And I'm going to double check, go into plot 1, make sure it's turned on. And then I'm going to select the type. I want a scatter plot, and I want to make sure that L1 is my x and L2 is my y. And you can choose whatever mark you want. So when I do graph here, notice I see something down here. This little open point is there, but where's the rest of it? Well, the magic here is if you press zoom, and you can scroll all the way down to the number 9. But really, if you just press the number 9, it'll do zoom stat immediately. So press 9, zoom stat. So notice that my data is there, and I see the 3 points there. So now I want a quadratic regression, that is a parabola to fit through all that data. So how do I do that? I'm going to go back into stat, which is right there. I'm going to calculate this time, so I scroll to the right, and I'm just going to press the number 5 to get to quad reg. So press 5, quad reg. So my L1 is going to be my independent variable. My L2 is going to be my dependent. Now I do want to store the equation, store my regression equation into the y up here. So how do I tell it to do that? Well, I got to go to the vars here, variables, and notice the y variables is to the right. I'm going to hit 1 for function, and I hit enter again. So now I've entered in y1 right there. So it's going to store it in there. So I'm going to calculate. Here actually tells me what my function is. So the answer is -x² minus 4x minus 8. So that is actually my function. This r squared just tells you how well it fits. Since it's a 1, it actually means 100%, a perfect fit. So your calculator might not have the 1 r squared right now, and we don't need it so much. So when I do check the graph here, notice I see my 3 points, and now I see my parabola going through. If I want to zoom out just a little bit to see the parabola in its entirety, I can do that. And I zoom to fit a little bit there, or I can just zoom out with the number 3 right there, and you can see here that my 3 points are there, and my quadratic model fits perfectly there. So the question now is, how do we use that? Well, so we've done actually the steps. We've checked the graph. We see how everything looks, and we're good to go there. Sometimes we're going to need to use that to interpret, so that's what's going to happen later in our notes there. And until then, we're all done. Thank you much.